Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Line, the Way, and the War, where we discuss Jesus, His church, and the spiritual battle that surrounds us all. My name is Craig Allison.
My name is Brandon Bonner,
and we'll be your host. All right, so this week we're kind of jumping off from where we were last week when we talked about AI and the transition from AI getting into some, what I would consider some more dangerous territory, both from a theological standpoint, primarily from a theological, spiritual standpoint, but also just like a weird place for us to be right now. And so this is, some folks that are listening to this are going to be, no way is this happening, but it is. And so we're talking about transhumanism. What is transhumanism? And it's basically the idea that we now have technology in place where humans can literally redesign themselves, both in later times of life or before birth. So it's like you have ordered babies, what do you want your baby to look like? And so the technology is right there where you can determine the eye color, the height, going into the DNA. It's called CRISPR, and it's a new technology that is basically allows you to go in and snip out like film reel. You got all these billions of information for your DNA. You snip out a piece that you don't like, and you put in a piece that you do like. And so it is a weird thing to think about, especially when we begin talking about the idea of our created self, how we're created. And so do we want to change that? And obviously, we're getting into a lot of the different stuff, like the transgenderism and the identity of I can be who I want to be just because I was born this biological way doesn't mean anything. And so if I decide I want to change that, I can. So transhumanism is the idea where we're using technology to enhance the human body and mind. We can overcome aging and perhaps even conquer death. That's one of the end goals, is to live indefinitely. So while these advances promise incredible possibilities, they also raise profound ethical and spiritual questions about the future of humanity. So let me stop right there, and I've kind of set it up. What's your initial reaction to this? Is this stuff you knew about or not?
No, not really. We were just talking briefly about it before. I've heard of this before, but have honestly not done a ton of research. But I think the first thing that came to mind when you were talking was, man, as humans, we really want to control things. Like it is a control thing. We want to control how we look and how we perform. And I think that I don't know for sure, but I feel like there's probably some maybe good intentions with some of this stuff. Like there's very bad diseases and cancers.
And that's
things.
part of the research. Why transhuman, why the CRISPR program, why, and I've got on the back of this, if you wanted to look at it. No, not that one.
Here's what he's got on the back. It's blank.
Oh, that's going to be a future episode. Sorry, I gave you too much information there. No, but part of the thing that initiated this was very, like goal oriented for disease, right, and to correct cancer and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but then you probably bleed into like, whoa, I can also like change the eye color, or I can change the gender of my baby, or I can, make them a D1 athlete, or give them the genetics to be a D1 athlete. I mean, there's probably a lot of ways that you could,
Yeah, so if somebody came to you right now and they said, we have a piece of technology where we can surgically implant it into your brain, and it's going to allow you to see not only better, so you don't need glasses, but you're going to be able to see a scope of colors that the human eye cannot see, and we can dial that in where you can read a road sign a mile away. And that's just the beginning. This is also going to constantly monitor your body and optimize all of your performance within your body. It will analyze any kind of mineral deficiency or vitamin deficiency and make the corrected changes. And so, on average, the implants that we've done on people extends their life by about 320 years.
I don't want to. That last part's probably would be out for me. I don't want to be here for 300.
Well, I think you would be in the minority on that, because I think a lot of people are like, absolutely. That, I was kind of didn't care about the other stuff, but you told me, I can live 500 years and be healthy and enjoy life. Sign me up, man.
Right. Well, then there's a root problem there, though. Like, I think back to Paul's kind of decree or cry out in Philippians. He's like, man, like, I want to be here with you because I want to share the word of God and the gospel, but man, I really don't actually want to be here. I want to go be with Jesus. And so as Christians, that is the mindset we should have, kingdom mindset. I want to be with Jesus. So why would I want to delay my time with Jesus for 500 more years? I mean, it's a long time.
Yep. And so what this is doing, to my point last week, I don't want to get too much into it, but what this technology is doing is replacing Messiah and eternity with the idea that we can be our own gods. Homo Deus is, and there's a book that's been written called Homo Deus, where technology is setting us up to a place where we believe immortality is within our grasp. It's the hubris of the Tower of Babel when we read about this. Except up until this point in our civilized historical existence, talking about this stuff was truly science fiction, and it's no longer science fiction. These things, maybe not like immortality, but we're getting closer and closer to that, where we've refined the body, and then tapping into the consciousness. And it's like, what is it that actually survives past death? And if we can preserve the mind, the brain, through technology indefinitely, then, the physical shell of the body that it resides in, that becomes obsolete, really. We can give you any kind of outward shell that, to navigate the physical world, but the technology allows us to transcend humanity itself. And so here's the hubris in this. Here's the replacement of eternity and what Paul was talking about in Philippians. And that, I mean, if I'm just looking at it, that's Satan's game plan. I mean, that's the whole ball game right there. That's exactly what he was offering in the garden: transcendence, knowledge. Did God actually tell you that you couldn't? You can be more than that. You can be like God. You can know things. And so we're at a point in our technology where that's being offered again in a, it's packaged a little bit differently, but it's the same version. So that's where we're at. What do we do with that?
So I think something that, kind of processing this as we go, but something I'm thinking about is, where do we draw the line? Like, let's go back to like medical science. So obviously, if someone said, "Hey, Craig, I'm going to offer you this implant and you're going to live to be 560 years old," you might be like, "Whoa, that's crazy." But if someone says, "Hey, Craig, you need to have a medical procedure done and it's going to extend your life by 10 years because if not, you're going to die because you have some sort of condition."
Right.
How do you distinguish between those, like a medical intervention to save your life versus transcendence?
Yeah, and I think that we today are in a precarious situation because we've lost sight of what is truly important. Hanging on to this physical life, that this is a temporary thing. And, we are given a certain amount of time on this earth. And I believe that God limited the amount, if you go back to the patriarchs, And I believe that there's literal language used in the Old Testament. I truly believe Methuselah lived 969 years old. The pre-Diluvian folks, where I think there's biological reasons why they did live so long. I think now this is I think there's a couple things. The first thing is the world was vastly different. The chemicals, the things that were being breathed in, completely different world. So, from a genetic standpoint, the human beings living at that time were probably as pretty close to perfect as you could be. So their life was much longer than ours. I also believe, though, that the tree of life sustained life. It basically was frozen animation. It kept you young for a long time. And I think from a genetic standpoint, that those genetics of eating that fruit, it was such a powerful thing that God had given that could sustain human biology, whatever it was, whatever that fruit was. They continued to pass that down genetically to their children, which is, you get to, you have Adam and Eve. Adam lived, a long, long life, and his children lived long, long lives. And so ancestral, you end up with Methuselah, who the Bible records as living 969 years. Then the flood happens, and then God shortens man's life. So from a scriptural standpoint, I look at that and I think, okay, there is a line there. When you start talking about extending your span of life hundreds of years past what the normal life is going to be, you have to question the motive there. Why is it that you're clinging to this earth to that degree? Because if you are, you're missing the point of what Paul was saying, which is this is a temporary place, and our real goal should be to transcend this earthly life and go to something much better.
So, hypothetical scenario here, just for my understanding. So, if I say I have a disease, doctor says, Brandon, you have. Well, what's the average lifespan in the U.S.?
For men, it's, I think, 76, 77.
Okay. I'm 75 years old. Doctor comes in and says, hey, Brandon, you have a disease and you're going to die in 2 weeks. But if we do a surgery, you're going to live additional 10 years, 85. Not an unreasonable age. We know a ton of people that are 85. Is that crossing the line? Like, how do we determine the line and when this becomes a issue? Because I feel like this kind of answers our broader question of like genetic modification. Like, okay, well, I'm doing genetic modification because I'll have a 98% chance of developing cancer, so I don't want my kids to do it. So I'm going to do genetic modification, and now they'll be able to live a full life. Like, how do you distinguish that line?
Yeah, I think it's nuanced at that point. I think there's a lot of factors that have to be considered. If you're looking for me to give you an actual number, I think from the Moses onward, there's been a pattern that has been set. And within that range, Moses lived, I think, 120 years. And we still have people today that live 120 years. That's not unheard of. So I think, when you're in that ballpark, the thinking around that should be, I've lived a good, long life, and I need to get my life at the best place that I can possibly get it to move on.
Right.
What might be the outliers? I think through advancement, technology, healthcare, that kind of stuff. I can see that getting moved a couple more decades. So I think maybe people living to about 150. And if you want a firm number, I that for me would be kind of the cutoff. It's like, you're 150, man, you need to go. The other piece of that, though, also that I think has to be considered, what is the quality of life?
Right.
And what are you doing with your life? Are you still living for Christ and being an influence for Him if you're 120? I think that's a huge part of it, rather than not. If your quality of life is such that you're you're now such a burden on your children and your family, and you can't do anything. I mean, that's no kind of life to have.
Yep. Well, it's just fascinating. I was thinking, because I don't think, could be wrong, but I don't think it would be like, hey, Craig, we got a pill you can take, you're going to live to be 500. It's probably going to be slow in, technology advancements or medical advancements over time that might get you to a point. And I was just curious your thoughts on, and I don't think there is a like scriptural, here's the age, and once you get past this age, you should be dead. But
150.
150, you heard it here first.
If I'm still at 150, I go buy a $1.25 bullet. It's time for me to go.
Oh, geez, that's terrible. I do think it is actually quite fascinating, because I think about death is like the equalizer. Not to get morbid, but that is the ultimate equalizer in life. We're all going to die,
right?
And so it is very enticing for humans, especially when you think about, oh man, I can live for 150 years. I got 120 years left. I can just do whatever I want to right now, because I know that there's many, many years ahead. And so I think that's maybe a good way for us as Christians to stay grounded. I know we've talked about this before, but like kingdom mindset, like thinking the way Paul thought in Philippians, like, hey, I'm glad I'm here with you. I'm glad to share the word of God and the good news, but also have a deep desire to be with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I wonder, and I don't feel this way all the time, and just full transparency, but how many of us have that deep, I'm talking a deep desire, like I really want to be with Jesus? Because if that was what was a true desire for us, I think definitely the lifestyle choices we make would be completely different.
Yeah.
Because you're living to be in the kingdom, and you don't know when that's going to come, but every decision you make, you're living with that kingdom mindset.
Yeah. Again, I do see some nuances in this, and I think that, when I'm thinking about this in terms of, if you're coming to me and you're telling me, honestly, if somebody said we can implant something in your eyes that allows you to see, like at night, like have night vision, like things that we would look at, like we think of superhuman.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool would that be? It's like, what would that be in my own life? Like, how would that change me? Mm-hmm. Would I be a better human being because I had superhuman eye ability? Or, I could live, as I age, more body parts don't work like they used to. I used to could be, jump up in a pickup truck pretty easily. And now I'm like crawling up in it. And it's embarrassing really to think about, how far I've fallen from a physical standpoint. And, I'm still relatively a young man. If somebody came to me tomorrow, I'm like, hey, we can fix all that. You can hop around like you're still 25. I think I'd be really hard-pressed to come up with a reason why I wouldn't do that. So there's that aspect of it. But then the other piece of this, which the transhuman argument, is that not only can we do that, but we're going to transcend what it means to be human. That's the word, transhuman. It's something completely different that sets us up to be completely independent of anything. And that's, I've preached about that, how we drift away from God when we think we've got everything that we need, because we don't have any dependence on God anymore. And so that's kind of the danger. As we allow technology to enter our lives, we get more and more independent, more self-sufficient, more able to do things that maybe we shouldn't have we were never created to do certain things. I'm thinking about God creating human beings. He did give us limitations. And so when we push back on those limitations, because we've reached a point in our technology where it enables us to do just that, I think we have to question that. So that's where I'm at on it.
Yep. Well, and I think that I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a new issue. I mean, it is. Like, obviously the first century Christians didn't have transhumanism and AI and like all these medical advancements, but I mean, it's it's ultimately back to this concept of drifting and distraction. Like it's no different. You know, you think about all the churches that Paul was writing to and how they were just like, oh, you were just in the right spot, and now you've already like completely drifted away.
Yeah.
I've gone back to the old law. You know, Jews trying to convince Gentiles this is how you're supposed to live, and vice versa. I mean, it's just drifting away. Like we're talking within, like you're probably talking to people that's like, oh yeah, I saw Jesus. Like I saw him walking around and doing all these miracles. I witnessed it firsthand.
Yeah.
And they're still drifting away and distracted and getting away from being focused on the good news, the gospel.
Right.
And Paul's constantly reminding, like, did you not forget, like, what Jesus did for you? Here's the good news. You're free from that.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. It's wrapped up differently, like you said, like it's packaged differently. But it's the same thing. It's an offer for distraction, being drifted away, unlocking a new power. I mean, it's all a distraction.
My worry in this, and there's probably people listening right now. I'd say the majority of people that listen to this, especially this topic right here, are thinking there's no way that this stuff is going to happen. Listen, it is going to happen. I mean, I think you and I had talked about, like, do you think this is going to be like 50 years down there? I think this is in my lifetime. I don't think we're far from this kind of stuff. I think we're a decade, at most 2 decades, 20 years away from truly being able to tap into this stuff. Because again, AI is exponentially growing. You know, the line isn't just like creeping up like this. It's shooting straight up as far as technology advancements and the things that are capable. Things that last year we thought were absolutely not, we would not achieve those things in a decade. In less than a year, we achieved it because of the exponential increase of technology. So this idea of technology redesigning humans and creating something other than what God created, that is such a temptation. I think this speaks to a lot of people's fears and anxieties and all of the questions that they have about eternity. It's like, if I can avoid facing eternity, well, yeah, because I don't know where. So it's that type of insecurity that I think Satan is going to work through. This is talk about let's call it the apple in the Garden of Eden that he tempts Eve with. Man, this is the biggest fruit that ever was. And I think a lot of Christians may end up really struggling with this level of offer that's being handed to them on a platter. I think the very wealthy will have access to it first, but like anything, think about the first flat screen TV. You had to be a pretty wealthy person to buy a flat screen TV.
Yeah.
But now it's within a lot of people's reach.
Yep.
So I think this will be kind of the same thing.
Yep.
So, all right, closing thoughts.
Man, these are some doozy topics we've been talking about.
I know.
I always feel like I need to go home and like do a ton of research because again, I think like with, I don't know, 95%, maybe 99% of the topics, I always go back to, are we talking about this? That's why we're doing this today, like to bring this into conversation and discussion, and hopefully for those of you that are listening, you're thinking about these things critically and studying, but also I don't want to get away from the fact that there's a lot of encouragement that Jesus rose on the third day and he defeated sin, and because of that, we have a home with him in eternity.
Yeah.
So all this stuff might be scary, might freak you out, but we should be comforted in knowing that Jesus died for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good thoughts. Thanks to our sponsor, Central Church of Christ, providing this great studio that we have. Ministry League's another one of our sponsors. Encourage you to download their app. And we've got another podcast coming out of this every Sunday, and it most of the times gets uploaded on Mondays after Sunday Digging Deeper. Elissa and Hunter are the co-hosts for that show. It's a great show. Give it a listen. Short. It's about 10 minutes. Until our next episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, be kind to one another, love one another. Remember, the creator of the universe loves you so much that he gave up his only son for you. Have a blessed day.